the halftime pour.
Ooh.
So we're gonna show you what we're gonna do this a little differently this season. We kind of talked about, a couple things we want to add in here. So I'm gonna tell you about what we're drinking, what's the average cost, the proof. We'll give you some tasting and smelling notes this season. We'll give you a rating out of a scale to 100. So 100 being the absolute best. And then we're going to do the question of the night. And the other thing we're going to do is we're actually going to keep track of some of this information when we do these. And so we're going to do some posts and have a basically like a tracker, so that we can provide people with some recommendations on social media and in other different resources for the future. So
Yeah, we're only going to rate things that we do on the podcast. And so this list will grow over time. But if you have never drank bourbon and are curious, it'll be a running list for you to kind of refer to when you want to go buy something.
all right, what are you drinking?
So tonight, and this is not a new bourbon, but for the start of this new project, I'm going to drink it for the last time on the podcast. This is the Dryfly Bourbon 101. And the 101 is the proof. That's why it's in the name here, which means it's a 50.5 alcohol content. This one is an interesting one. It's only aged, if you can see it, it's only been aged 3 years. So most bourbons typically are aged a little longer than that, although certainly doesn't disqualify it from being a bourbon. And I would say it's an interesting thing because typically the longer something's in a barrel, the more oak you might get on the nose and then on the palate when you're tasting it. And I would say for the nose, that's very true. I get more kind of like dark fruits and a little heat whenever I smell this. But when I taste this, I get a lot of like black pepper, a little bit of oak, and then it still tastes some kind of fruity. I can't really tell what kind of fruits it tastes like, but it still has that spice. Like it tastes like it's got like a pepper spice. It still does taste oaky, even though it's only been barreled for 3 years. It's delightful. It goes down very easily. It's average price. I found it for $40. A Google search told me it's usually between like 38 and 42, so kind of right there in that sweet spot. And yeah, it's not too hot. If you're not a bourbon drinker, it's not going to like destroy your palate, but it's also not too smooth either. So it's got flavor, and even though it wasn't aged very long, it does kind of slap a little bit.
Anything on the
So
smell?
yeah, the smell is just kind of like I can't even like identify what it is, but it's like fruit flavors.
Fruit?
It almost smells kind of sweet.
Okay. So some sweet.
Yeah,
You said
it's
fruits,
hard to
black
define.
pepper, and oak. Those are kind of the main
That's like the stuff I taste. Yeah, the
taste.
smell is just kind of like sweet fruit. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and
And
so if I had to rate this,
yeah,
I do typically like high proofs, and obviously, I mean, and I think most people who are into bourbon like things that are aged a little longer. So those will be my knocks on this. I think it some of the flavors, while I had to kind of I think about what it tasted like, they're not as vibrant and pronounced as flavors in bourbons that are aged a little longer. So if I put this on a scale of 100, especially considering the price with it only being $40, I would probably rank this like a 70 out of 100. Um, I did Google search this because I was curious, um, and other people have rated it higher. Some people have rated it in the 80s. It sounds like his average rating out of 100 was actually like 88,
wow.
so higher than I gave it. But that's coming from someone who enjoys sipping on bourbon from time to time here, and I would give it a 70. It's worth the buy,
Nice.
but it's not something I'll probably go buy again.
Hell yeah. So mine is going to be Wild Turkey Private Select Single Barrel. It's about a 9-year-old bottle from my calculations. This is from the distillery, from the visitor center. So,
Nice.
can be a little more challenging to find these, but you can probably find general single barrels out there if people have them. It is distilled by Wild Turkey, and the proof is also 101. So we're both drinking 101 tonight. I think on average, from what I was seeing, these are about like in the $70 to $75 range. So kind of a medium, mid-priced bourbon, relative to, I think, the average cost of some of the bottles out there. For me, when I give this a nice smell and taste, I get a lot of like caramel, or some people would say caramel, depending on how you pronounce that. So Definitely has like caramel, a little bit of brown sugar. So it's kind of more that like almost like walking into a home where someone's baking like cookies or something like, they're baking. Like that's kind of what the smell reminds me of. On the taste, it's very smooth. Not one that's gonna kill you in terms of proof. Again, I think kind of like those almost like baking spice notes, a little bit of the sweetness, but yeah, that almost like that caramel slash brown sugar is the best way that I would describe this one. In terms of if I had to pick up some notes, rating for me would be I'd give this one like a 85 out of 100. I think it's a very solid bourbon. It's one that I would definitely drink over and over again. And if I found this out there in the wild, I would definitely grab it.
Nice. Hell yeah,
So
that's a good
solid
rating.
pick for me. So we do have a question of the night. So Scott, what is your favorite mixed drink with bourbon and or rye in it, and why?
Ooh, that's a loaded question because it does go kind of back and forth for me. I would say if I had to tell you just more frequently what my bourbon mixed drink of choice would be, it's going to be an old fashioned. I think you can never go wrong with an old fashioned. If you get the ratio right with the bitters, and then you've always got to add,
Yeah.
the orange to it. I think that really makes a big difference. You can't go wrong with that. I would say sometimes I do enjoy like bourbon sours as well.
Mhm.
But let's just stick to the old fashioned because that's what I'm usually in the mood for.
Okay.
How about you?
That's a pretty crowd favorite. For me, if somebody can perfect a whiskey sour, the ones with like the egg white on the top and just has like a really good consistency and, mix of sour, that's probably going to be my favorite of those. I really like old fashioned, some of the other ones, but I've had a few really, really good whiskey sours in my day, and those are going to be, I think, some of my favorites.
Do you remember that whiskey sour from the piano bar?
Yeah, I do. That was disgusting. It tasted literally like like Gatorade and bourbon. I don't even know what that was.
Something was off with that ratio.
That was absolutely disgusting. But there's your halftime pour. So cheers, friend.